The Holy Gospel, according to Matthew, the 9th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at a tax booth. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed him. And as he sat at dinner in the house, many tax collectors and sinners came and were sitting with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" But when he heard this, he said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician. Those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have come to call not the righteous, but sinners." While he was saying these things to them, suddenly a leader of the synagogue came in and knelt before him, saying, "My daughter has just died. But come and lay your hand on her, and she will live." And Jesus got up and followed him with his disciples. Then suddenly a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years came up behind him and touched the fringe of his cloak. For she said to herself, "If only I touch the cloak, I will be made well." Jesus turned, and seeing her, he said, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well." And instantly the woman was made well. When Jesus came to the leader's house and saw the flute players and the crowds making a commotion, he said, "Go away, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But when the crowd had been put outside, he went in, took her by the hand, and the girl got up. And the report of this spread throughout the district. The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You may be seated. Gina Faraday was at a decision point in her life. Now, she'd been at many decision points in her 30-plus years of life. Decisions on jobs, decisions on education, decisions on relationships. But this one seemed a little different than some of those other decisions. I mean, she knew that all decisions have consequences, and sometimes it's good, sometimes there's some remorse, and you go forward and deal with it. So let's talk about how Gina got up to this decision point in her life. Gina grew up in kind of a normal home. Her parents went to church, but the way Gina explained it, it wasn't that religion and faith were a central point of her life. She even spent some time at youth group and those kinds of things. But by the time she went to college, kind of that stuff had gone to the past. And even in her early career, faith just wasn't a part of her life. But then about 3 years ago, something changed. She felt a pull. She felt a pull that she could not explain. She felt a pull at her soul. And at first, she tried to satisfy this pull at her soul by, listening to things, maybe reading things, listening to some podcasts. But eventually, she felt she had to go and reach out and find something. So she went to a few churches, and she ended up at one that, well, it just didn't seem to be the same one that she went to when she was a kid. It was different. People were different. How they did things was different. But strangely enough, she felt like she belonged there. She felt that this was a place where she could grow, where that pull at her soul could suddenly be materialized, and she could work with these people and this new faith thing that she was holding on to and grow. And that's what led Gina to a decision point. Because she was changing, she was realizing she was transforming, and her view of life was changing a little bit. Because you see, what was starting to happen to Gina is she was starting to see the world through the eyes of Jesus. She was starting to hear things in the world with the ears of Jesus. So the world was starting to look different to her. And she started thinking about what she thought might be a difficult decision. Her friends. You see, Gina had a good group of friends. She really had a good group of friends. A group of friends that were supportive. But lately, with these Jesus eyes and these Jesus ears, she'd been hearing some of the jokes her friends have been saying, and, they were maybe jokes that were at the expense of people that didn't look like the people that were in Gina's group. And that was starting to bother her. And some of her friends, were really focused on, man, when is the next party going to be? Or regaling the party from last week, or talking about, well, maybe we had a little too much that time. And those were kind of the central points. And really, none of Gina's friends seemed to be on her idea of a faith journey. They really didn't talk about that. It wasn't central. So Gina was wondering what she was going to do. Did she have to get a new group of friends? Or could she still keep her group of friends? She loved her people. She loved these people that she had got to know. They supported each other, and she really didn't want to let go of them. But she also wanted to make sure that her new life, her new faith journey, was going to be nourished. And she did not know what to do. So we're going to come back to Gina in a little bit and talk a little bit more about her decision point, her question. But I want to look to what happened in our reading from Matthew for maybe a little wisdom on what Gina can do. So our reading from Matthew, the first part of it is the calling of Matthew. So here we have this young Jewish man, Matthew. He's sitting at a tax collector booth, okay? And it's important to get a little context of this tax collector. You see, Matthew was a Jewish young man, but he was working for the Roman occupying authority. You see, when the Romans came in and took over a country, took over some territory, they needed some revenue. They don't do this for free. This is part of what they do. So they needed to collect some taxes. So in this fishing village, people would fish, and they would sell their fish, and that's how the Romans were going to collect their taxes. But the Romans don't, bring out Roman officials to get to know the land and find people and tax them. They hire locals to do it. But they don't really hire them, okay? They say to some local person, your job is going to be to collect taxes, and this is what we need, okay? Now, you're not going to get paid a wage. There's no hourly rate. There's no monthly stipend that you're going to get. You give us this much from collecting from people, but we don't care how much you collect from people. As long as you give us what we ask for, you can collect as much as you want. So this system is not exactly designed to help the unethically inclined stay within their ethical boundaries, if you know what I mean. They would take as much as they could. And that's why tax collectors in the Bible are often lumped in together with horrible people, because many of them would exploit basically their own people in order to not only make a living, but actually get rich off of it. So Matthew was probably not loved by the people that he had to collect the taxes from. So in our gospel lesson, we see Matthew just sitting at his table, Jesus walking by, and with a story that's similar to when Jesus calls the people who were fishermen, hey, follow me, and the people just leave and follow along. Now, that's dramatic. It's a dramatic move. And maybe it happened exactly that way. But maybe, the story's maybe leaving something out about Matthew. So let's think about, we don't know if Matthew knew about this Jesus person before. Maybe he did. We don't know how Matthew was feeling about his job, his occupation. Maybe his soul was starting to get pulled a little bit for what he was doing, and he was looking for a way out, too. A way out that would work. And maybe Jesus knew that. Maybe Jesus knew that, this is the one, this Matthew. He is the one whose soul is pulling towards something bigger, and I am going to give him that beautiful opportunity. And Matthew took that beautiful opportunity. So Matthew now follows Jesus. So what happens next? Does Jesus take Matthew and say, okay, we're going to whisk you away to missionary school over here. We're going to take you out of this environment, and you're going to do something new and big and different? No, that's not what happens. So in order to talk a little bit about what happens next, we're going to do a little diversion into translation. So Bible is, the New Testament is written in a Greek language that no one uses anymore. So people who translate it into English have to make some decisions. And some words are easy to translate, some words are difficult, and we have different variations. So what I want to do this morning is just to give us a little different perspective on this short part of Matthew. I'm going to read from the First Nations version of the New Testament. Now, this is not a translation. It's not a word-for-word translation. But people who represent indigenous people in the United States said, the way the Bible is translated does not speak to us in the way we would like it to. So we're going to change it a little bit so it speaks to us. So I'm going to read a little bit of this because I think it has a different nuance to our message today that may help us. And they also give some extra information. You will notice that this version uses different names. And if you read it, the common name is in parentheses, so I will read both. Okay. So, Creator sets free, that's Jesus, left there, and as he walked on, he saw a tribal tax collector named Gift from the Creator, Matthew, sitting at his tax booth. Now, Creator sets free, Jesus, to the surprise of all, walked up to the tribal tax collector and said to him, Gift from Creator, Matthew, come and walk the road with me. He got up from his tax booth, left it all behind, and began to walk the road with Creator sets free, Jesus. In the house of the Gift from the Creator, Matthew, Creator sets free, Jesus, and his followers were sitting down at the table eating with the guests. Among the guests were many tax collectors and outcasts. When the separated ones, the Pharisees, saw Creator sets free, Jesus, eating with the outcasts, they complained to his followers, saying, Why does your wisdom keeper eat with tribal tax collectors and outcasts? Creator sets free, Jesus, overheard them and said, Tell people who are well do not need medicine. It is for the ones who are sick. Go and learn this wise saying. What I want is kindness and mercy, not animal sacrifices. I have not come for the ones with good hearts. I have come to help the outcast find the path back home again. So, one thing that to notice in this is normally in the standard translation that we're used to, Matthew has a little party after being called as a disciple. Okay? And who gets invited to this party? Other tax collectors, prostitutes, and sinners. Okay? Now, the indigenous people version calls them outcasts. Okay? I think that may help us understand the kind of people that were hanging out with Jesus and Matthew. These were people that the good people, the good people, the Pharisees said, why are you hanging out with this people, Jesus? You know what they're about. You know what they do. Why are you hanging out with them? And Jesus responds, he says, well, people don't need a doctor. It's sick people that need a doctor. It's sick people that need a doctor. Righteous people don't need the healing mercy of Jesus. It's the sinners. It's the outcasts. It's the people that society has pushed aside. Those are the ones that Jesus is here for. Now, when Jesus told this to the Pharisees, was Jesus telling the Pharisees, brother Pharisees, you have done so well, my friends. You have done so well that you don't even need me. You got it all covered. No, I don't think he was saying that. I think he was asking them, he was challenging them to say, are you sure you are well? Are you sure you are not like those that you are pushing aside? Are you sure that you have it all figured out? I think that's what Jesus was saying to them. And I think Jesus says that to us sometimes too. When we think we've got it all figured out, when we think we're doing okay, we need to be reminded, oh no, we are outcasts and sinners as well. We are part of, but here's the beautiful thing. What does Jesus do for the sinners and the outcasts? What does he go along with? Maybe it's Matthew's idea. I don't know. They have a party. I'm calling Matthew and I'm having a party. I'm going to invite all of these people that the Pharisees would not want to be seen with, and we're going to have a dinner party, and I'm going to eat and drink with them. That is what is happening. That is the beautiful thing that's happening. They're having a party. And Matthew is there, and Jesus is there, and all of the people that have been committing sins like all the rest of us, we're all there too. So let's go back to Gina. So Gina's got this decision to make. She's like, do I keep hanging out with my friends who maybe stay out too late, do odd things, do things that maybe, the world's probably the fancy, idealized church world maybe not think is such a great thing to do? Do I hang out with them, or do I need to get more church friends to balance this whole thing out? Well, Gina probably should get some church friends too. You want to get some friends at church always. But if she's going to do what Jesus explained here in Matthew, she should have a party with her friends and say, hey, I'm starting to follow Jesus. I'm starting to really see the world in a new light. So let's have a dinner party together and let's talk about this. Now, maybe Gina's not ready for this yet. Maybe Gina's not ready to be the center of attention and say, well, you got to check out this Jesus thing. Maybe she's just not ready to do that yet. Maybe she's got to do this slowly. Maybe she's got to move in inches rather than miles with her friends. But something's going to happen. Oh, something's going to happen. Because as long as she keeps these relationships with these people, people are going to notice something changing with Gina. They're not going to have a choice. They're going to notice it. They're going to notice the Spirit has done something. They may not know it's the Spirit, but they are going to notice. They are going to notice. So when we continue our transformation as followers of Jesus, sinners though we are, remember that we are invited to that party and we need to invite others. They may not want to come right away, but slowly, they're going to join the party. They're going to join the party. Amen.